Case of Province of Maguindanao del Norte v. BLGF 12. Doctrine. A case becomes moot when a supervening event renders the relief sought no longer necessary or of practical use. Courts will generally dismiss such cases unless they involve matters of paramount public interest or issues capable of repetition yet evading review. Facts. Republic Act No. 11550 divided Maguindanao into Maguindanao del Norte and Maguindanao del Sur, with transitional governance provisions. Sinsuat, designated as acting governor of Maguindanao del Norte, sought to appoint Alonso as provincial treasurer, but the Bureau of Local Government Finance, BLGF, refused to process the appointment, citing legal ambiguities. Sinsuat filed a petition for mandamus to compel the BLGF to process the appointment. The court issued a writ of mandamus and preliminary mandatory injunction. During the pendency of the case, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. appointed Abdullah of Macacua as governor of Maguindanao del Norte and Sinsuat as vice governor. Issue and ruling. Issue. Whether the petition for mandamus was rendered moot by the appointments of Macacua and Sinsuat. Ruling. Yes. Mootness of petition. The court dismissed the petition for mandamus as moot. The supervening appointments and assumption of office rendered the relief sought irrelevant. The writ of mandamus and preliminary mandatory injunction were dissolved. PSME. Doctrine. A case becomes moot when it ceases to present a justiciable controversy due to supervening events, rendering the resolution of the issue incapable of providing any practical relief. Courts generally refrain from deciding moot cases unless there are exceptional circumstances such as a grave violation of the Constitution, paramount public interest, or when the case is capable of repetition yet evading review. Facts. Respondent Philippine Society of Mechanical Engineers, PSME, held its 2015 National Convention and election for the 2016 PSME National Board of Directors. Disputes arose regarding the validity of the elections due to alleged irregularities. PSME's Commission on Elections, PSME COMELEC, annulled certain votes and declared a new set of board members and officers, including ENGR, Leandro A. Conti as the national president. On February 10, 2016, the Professional Regulation Commission, PRC, issued Office Order No. 2016-56 recognizing Engineer Conti as PSME's national president for purposes of signing certificates of good standing, COGS, for the renewal of professional identification cards of PSME members. Respondent PSME, represented by its incumbent president Engineer Murray Demdam, filed a petition before the RTC to nullify PRC Office Order No. 2016-56, arguing it was beyond the PRC's jurisdiction to recognize officers of a professional organization. A separate intracorporate case declared the November 2015 election of officers, including Engineer Conti's presidency, void. The RTC Manila dismissed the nullity petition, citing mootness due to the resolution of the intracorporate case. Issue. Whether the petition for the nullity of PRC Office Order No. 2016-56 was rendered moot by the RTC decision in the intracorporate case. Ruling. Yes, the case was moot. The intracorporate case rendered the PRC Office Order No. 2016-56 ineffective, as it voided Engineer Conti's election as the PSME national president. The matter had no practical consequence since PRC Office Order No. 2016-56 was provisional and limited to administrative purposes. Municipality of Bacun versus Municipality of Sugpon. Doctrine. Strict compliance with procedural rules may be relaxed when substantive justice and public interest are at stake. In boundary disputes involving local government units, procedural technicalities must yield to considerations of fairness and the effective resolution of the conflict. Facts. The municipalities of Bacun, Benguet, and Sugpon, Ilocos Sur, both claimed ownership over a 1,118-hectare parcel of land. Following the provisions of the Local Government Code, LGC, the boundary dispute was referred to an ad hoc joint Sanggunian of Benguet and Ilocos Sur. The Joint Sanggunian resolved the issue in favor of Bakun through Joint Resolution No. 1, Series of 2014. Aggrieved, Sugpan, through the province of Ilocos Sur, served a notice of appeal to the Sangguniang Panloloygan of Benguet and filed a petition on appeal with the Regional Trial Court, RTC, of Ilocos Sur. Bakun sought the dismissal of the appeal, arguing that Sugpan failed to comply with Rule 40 of the Rules of Court, as the notice of appeal was not filed with the Joint Sanggunian. Bakun also raised issues about non-payment of docket fees and alleged defects in the notice of appeal. The RTC ruled in favor of Sugpan, stating that Rule 40 did not strictly apply to boundary disputes under the LGC and that Sugpan had substantially complied with the rules. The Court of Appeals affirmed the RTC's decision. Issue: whether the procedural lapses should render the joint resolution final and executory. Held: no, procedural lapses did not render the joint resolution final. The procedural lapses, if any, were not fatal. The rules must be liberally construed in boundary disputes involving public interest, and substantive justice must prevail. Senate versus Media Aldea. A petition for judicial review may be dismissed if it fails to exhaust administrative remedies or does not resolve jurisdictional issues within the appropriate internal processes of a legislative body. Facts: the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee was investigating the alleged misuse of COVID-19 funds flagged by the Commission on Audit, COA. In response, Executive Secretary Medialdia, under the instruction of President Duterte, issued a memorandum on October 4, 2021, barring executive officials from attending the hearings. The executive justified the directive on the grounds that the inquiries were beyond the Senate's legislative functions and focused on individual accountability. This directive prompted the Senate to file a petition challenging the memorandum, alleging that it encroached upon its constitutional mandate to conduct inquiries in aid of legislation. Issue: whether the petition was procedurally proper, or whether it was premature due to unresolved jurisdictional disputes within the Senate. Ruling: yes, the Supreme Court dismissed the petition, ruling that it was premature because the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee had not addressed the jurisdictional challenge posed by the executive. The court emphasized that internal procedural issues must first be resolved before judicial intervention is sought. Marquez versus Comelec. Doctrine: a candidate cannot be declared a nuisance based on subjective and arbitrary criteria such as lack of popularity or financial means. Equal access to public office is a constitutional right, and procedural due process must be strictly observed in cases involving the cancellation of certificates of candidacy. Facts: petitioner, Marquez, filed a certificate of candidacy (COC) for senator in the May 2022 national and local elections. The Commission on Elections, COMELEC, motu proprio initiated proceedings to declare Marquez a nuisance candidate. COMELEC's grounds: alleged that Marquez lacked the bona fide intent to run for public office. Cited his lack of resources, political support, and nationwide recognition. COMELEC decision: declared Marquez a nuisance candidate. Cancelled his COC and excluded his name from the official ballot. Supreme Court petition: Marquez challenged the COMELEC resolutions, asserting that they violated his constitutional rights to due process and equal access to public office. Whether the COMELEC erred in declaring Marquez a nuisance candidate and cancelling his certificate of candidacy, COC. Issue and ruling: yes, the Supreme Court found the COMELEC's resolutions to be unsupported by substantial evidence. Declaring Marquez a nuisance based on subjective factors was arbitrary and violated his constitutional rights. There is a due process violation. The burden-shifting approach of requiring Marquez to prove his intent to run was deemed improper and a violation of his right to due process. v. COMELEC. Doctrine: the allocation of additional seats under the party list system in proportion to a party list's total number of votes is constitutional. The system adheres to proportional representation, fulfilling the constitutional mandate for party list representation and ensuring the broadest possible representation in the House of Representatives. Facts: Petitioners ANGKLA and SBP, as well as AKM-APTM, challenged the constitutionality of Section 11(b) of RA 7941, which allows party lists garnering more than 2% of votes to receive additional seats proportional to their total votes. They argued this results in double counting of votes for 2%ers, violating the Equal Protection Clause. The COMELEC had allocated seats in the 2019 elections using the Banat formula. Petitioners sought the nullification of COMELEC's seat allocation and a recalibration excluding the 2% votes from the second round of computation. Issues and ruling. 1. Whether Section 11(b) of RA 7941 is unconstitutional for allowing double counting in the allocation of additional seats. Ruling: Section 11(b) is constitutional. The perceived double counting arises from the nature of proportional representation and does not violate the Equal Protection Clause. The 2% votes are a legitimate basis for both guaranteed and additional seats under the law. Second issue and ruling. Whether the Banat formula violates the principle of one person, one vote or the Equal Protection Clause. No. The Banat formula does not infringe on one person, one vote or equal protection. It balances proportional representation with the party list system's constitutional mandate to comprise 20% of the House of Representatives. Agabo versus COMELEC. The Commission on Elections, COMELEC, is required to exercise quasi-judicial powers when a legal controversy arises, necessitating an investigation of facts and evidence. The COMELEC must comply with due process, including notice and hearing, to resolve issues of candidate qualification or substitution. The COMELEC cannot simply rely on administrative resolutions to settle disputes without hearing the involved parties. Facts. Petitioner Amelita Navarro filed a certificate of candidacy (COC) for mayor of Santiago City, Isabela, for the 2022 national and local elections, supported by a certificate of nomination and acceptance (CONA) from the political party Partido Reforma. However, another candidate, Christopher Asen, also filed a COC for the same position with CONA from the same party. Senator Panfilo Lacson, chairperson of Partido Reforma, sent letters to the COMELEC disowning Asen's CONA and asserting that Navarro was the legitimate candidate of the party. Subsequently, Navarro withdrew her candidacy and substituted her with Agabo. The COMELEC, however, declared Navarro an independent candidate and denied due course to Agabo's substitution, citing Section 15 of COMELEC Resolution No. 10717. Issues. Whether the COMELEC committed grave abuse of discretion in failing to recognize Navarro's legitimacy as the official candidate of Partido Reforma and denying Agabo's substitution. Yes, the COMELEC gravely abused its discretion by ignoring Senator Lacson's letters disowning Asen's CONA. The legal controversy between Asen and Navarro called for a resolution based on a proper hearing and evidence. Second, whether the COMELEC violated due process by not conducting hearings to resolve the dispute regarding the authenticity of Asen's CONA. Yes, the COMELEC violated due process by not conducting a summary hearing to determine the authenticity of Asen's CONA and by relying solely on administrative procedures. The COMELEC's failure to investigate and hear the parties resulted in an unjust decision. PAS versus COMELEC. Doctrine. The constitutional right to speedy disposition of cases applies to all judicial, quasi-judicial, or administrative proceedings. A prolonged investigation or delay, absent sufficient justification, constitutes a grave abuse of discretion and warrants the dismissal of the case. Facts. Petitioner Penes ran for mayor of Digos City during the 2010 national and local elections, NLE. He filed his Statement of Contributions and Expenditures, SOS, declaring campaign expenses of 600,000 pesos. COMELEC notified him that his expenditure exceeded the allowable limit of 281,403 pesos. Penes explained that part of his declared expenses, for sample ballots and legal fees, were party expenses, which should be excluded under election laws. COMELEC filed a complaint for alleged election overspending. After a protracted investigation, it found probable cause to indict Penes. Penes sought relief, citing the inordinate delay in the resolution of the case, arguing it violated his right to a speedy disposition of his case. Issue: whether there was inordinate delay in the conduct of the preliminary investigation that violated Penes' right to speedy disposition of his case. Held, yes. The 6-year delay in resolving the preliminary investigation, given the case's simplicity, was unjustified. This delay prejudiced Penes and violated his constitutional right to speedy disposition of his case. Procedural lapse: the court relaxed procedural rules to prevent injustice, as the substantial merits of Penes' petition justified the consideration of his claims despite the technical defect in filing. Prescott v. Bureau of Immigration. Doctrine: citizenship is a privilege that may be revoked by the proper authority upon evidence of fraud or misrepresentation during its acquisition. However, procedural due process must always be observed, and administrative remedies must not infringe on constitutional rights. Facts: Petitioner Prescott, born in 1950 to an American father and a Filipino mother under the 1935 Constitution, resided and worked in the Philippines for many years. He lost his American citizenship in 1976 and later reacquired Philippine citizenship in 2008 under Republic Act No. 9225. However, his ex-wife and her companion filed a complaint alleging that his reacquisition of Philippine citizenship was fraudulent. The Bureau of Immigration, BI, conducted proceedings, leading to the Department of Justice, DOJ, canceling Prescott's reacquired citizenship. Prescott was later arrested and detained on the basis of a deportation order. Issue: whether Prescott, under the 1935 Constitution, was a natural-born Filipino citizen. Held, yes. Prescott was deemed a natural-born Filipino citizen through consistent actions affirming his allegiance to the Philippines and his subsequent oath of allegiance, constituting substantial compliance with the requirements of formal election under the 1935 Constitution. Prescott's detention and deportation were illegal as he was a Philippine citizen and not an alien subject to deportation. The habeas corpus petition was granted, and his immediate release was ordered. Thank you for listening. Next video will be Commercial Law Case Digest penned by Justice Lazaro-Javier.